welcome. My name is John, and I'm just here to discuss movies on the YT. And if you'd like to join that discussion, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well. And recently, movie YouTubers have gone around having 10 genres and saying their favorite film in each of those 10 genres and tagging about 5 other YouTubers at the end of their videos to do the same thing. And I was tagged by Man of Movies, which is a great, fantastic channel. He has a lot of great insights into film and some awesome analysis. And Oscars might not be for everybody, but he has some amazing analysis of those types of movies, and I love watching his videos. And so check out his channel if you haven't yet. And so I'm starting off with horror, and I'm a huge horror fan, and I'm going to shamelessly plug the fact that I am starting up a horror-specific channel simply because I have an amazing theme and rating system that is original, that I've never seen anyone else do, but it only works for horror movies. And so I'm shamelessly going to plug that here. But my favorite horror movie of all time is The Shining from 1980, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, when I first saw this in high school, it was like top 5, probably top 3 horror movie for me. But freshman year of college, for Gen Ed's credits, I took an introduction to film class, and I decided to write about The Shining for my final paper. And through writing that final essay and final paper, it became my favorite horror movie, and it's probably my favorite Jack Nicholson performance as well. But it's not my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie, actually. It's only my second favorite Kubrick movie. And next up is animation, and my favorite animated movie of all time would have to go to The Lion King. This is one of the closer categories for me, but it will always probably be The Lion King that comes up at number 1, for as much as I love some other movies. This is just a movie that I've always loved. I love the songs in the movie. One of the greatest scenes in cinema for me is when Scar kills Mufasa, and I just love some of the imagery that this movie has. And next up is drama. This was probably the hardest category for me to decide because the first couple movies that came to mind, one is technically based off of a comic book, although it's very different and definitely more of a drama because it doesn't really have much action. Then the other one is just a very long movie, and so at times it feels very dramatic, but the finale of the movie is a big action set piece, and it involves teaching people how to fight. And so I didn't feel like that fully fit. And then another pick is a movie that's only like a month and a half old that I feel like got completely snubbed by the Oscars and has become critically divisive for reasons I will never understand, that I'm actually planning on doing a video essay about. But it is only, and even though I am very passionate about that movie, it's only like a month and a half old. So I didn't fully feel like saying it's my favorite. And so I kind of just decided to go the hidden gem route. And that hidden gem is from 1992, and that is The Stolen Children. This is an Italian movie, and I believe you can only find it on Amazon Prime. I couldn't find it to rent anywhere, but it is available on Amazon Prime if you have a Prime Video subscription, and I highly recommend it. It's just a great personal story about these 2 kids and the sister or the daughter her mother prostituted her, and so when her mother went to jail, these 2 kids became orphans, but the children's home in Milan wouldn't accept the daughter, and they didn't want to split them up, and so this, I guess technically more of a police officer, he's kind of a mix between a police officer and a social worker. He's not really either one, he's kind of in the middle, but more so a police officer, has to transport the kids from Milan to a children's home in Sicily. And this movie just takes you on a journey. He becomes this father figure for these children, and it's really a throwback to the late 40s and 50s neo-realism Italian movies. And it's just a movie I feel like promoting because it's very much a hidden gem of a movie, and it's an amazing, beautiful movie. And so next up is comedy, and compared to my last pick, this is going to take a drastically sharp left turn. There's two movies that compete for my number one. One is an obvious choice that a lot of people I could probably put at number one or close to number one, and one is a movie that probably no one else says is number one, and I'm going to choose that one, and that is The Interview. It can be fairly divisive at times, but to me, it's an awesome raunchy comedy, which are always like either guilty pleasures or just great comedies to me. I love raunchy comedies. It's a great political satire, in my opinion. It's a great stoner movie, and it's also one of the most quotable movies out there. I always catch myself quoting it. There's always memes about it. And next up is Sci-Fi. Now, this is a movie a lot of people put up there as one of the greatest movies of all time. But when people talk about the greatest sci-fi movies, they never talk about it, even though, in my opinion, it's clearly a sci-fi movie. And that is Christopher Nolan's Inception. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love the frickin' movie to death. It's one of the most visually stunning movies of all time. It's got one of the greatest scores of all time. It's got two of my favorite actors of all time in Leonardo and Tom Hardy. My favorite director of all time. I probably already said that. But it's just an amazing movie. People have talked about it on and time again. And so, moving on. And next up is Action. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is my favorite movie from the previous decade. It's my favorite action movie from that decade. And that is Baby Driver. Now, I do have a Blu-ray, or I did have a Blu-ray, but I didn't have a Blu-ray player when I moved, and so I didn't bring it with me. I love this movie to death, and the reason for that is just the sound editing and the soundtrack and how the choreography is so perfectly timed with the songs in the movie, and the way they incorporate the songs into the movie by having Baby listening to earphones and having a good reason onto why he's doing that. And it just explains everything perfectly. And even beyond that, there's certain things in like the background, like particularly when he gets coffee, if you just pay attention to stuff in the background and everything, it's an amazing movie with great production design, and I never hear anybody say this, but it has one of the greatest movie villains and greatest action movie villains of all time in Jon Hamm's buddy. It's amazing. When he's in that diner, it is scary as hell to me. I love Jon Hamm's performance in Baby Driver. And next up is Westerns. Now, my dad is a major Western fan. John Wayne is his favorite actor. He loves Westerns, and so because of that, I've seen a decent amount of them, even though I tend to gravitate more towards Clint Eastwood and, the spaghetti Westerns that were kind of made in Italy, even though they're about America. That being said, my favorite Western is not a spaghetti Western. It is an American remake of one of my favorite movies of all time, a top 5 movie of all time for me, the original version. This is the American remake, and that is The Magnificent Seven. Even though it doesn't quite hold up to Seven Samurai. I saw this before I saw Seven Samurai, but I still love The Magnificent Seven. This is the original one, not the Denzel Washington one. I just love the story on how, seven, outlaws and cowboys and stuff just come together to protect a town. And it also has Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, 3 of the best actors from the 60s era. And next up is Romance. Now, I initially had trouble thinking about a movie here because, especially when it comes to romantic dramas, which is what I picture when I think of the genre of romance, they're movies I don't even watch, to be honest, let alone have them as my favorites. But the more I thought about it, the clearer this answer got for me, and it's an obvious answer for me. That being said, it's probably a little, not so much a typical answer, because it is not really a drama, but it is definitely a romance movie, and that is Grease. This is my favorite musical of all time. It's one of my mom's favorite movies of all time. It's my stepmom's favorite movie of all time, or second favorite movie of all time. And I love this movie. I love the songs. I grew up with this movie. I grew up with these songs. And next up is Adventure. Now, this is a genre where I think I picked a movie that you probably won't see anybody else pick. but it's a movie that is very important to my development into being a movie fan. It's a movie that critics have always kind of loved, but the audience has always been split down the middle. I mean, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is literally 50%. But I've never understood the criticisms of this movie. To me, it's essentially a masterpiece. Not to ruin a review I'm going to have out either tonight or tomorrow morning, because it is extremely relevant to a new release that comes out this week, and that is Peter Jackson's King Kong. This was the first DVD, the first physical movie I ever actually bought. And then recently I got the Steelbook. And so, yeah, but I love this movie. I'm going to save most of my thoughts for my review. But I love this movie to death. I've never understood some of the criticism it gets. Yeah, it's 3 hours and like 20 minutes, but it uses that time perfectly, in my opinion. And yeah, there might be some moments where the CGI doesn't entirely hold up. But overall, I think it's an amazing movie. And it is definitely an adventure movie because it takes you on one hell of an adventure to an island and back, and so, yeah. And last, but certainly not least, is probably my favorite genre, my go-to genre, the genre I'm probably most knowledgeable about in terms of all 10 of these genres. That being said, I'm probably going to pick the most cliche answer for my favorite movie within this genre, and beyond that, it's by my favorite director, as well as my favorite movie of all time. Even outside of the comic book genre, it's just my favorite movie of all time. And that is The Dark Knight. I could go on and on about this movie for days. It features probably my favorite superhero, at least in terms of movies and TV, and probably my favorite superhero in comics as well, although that's a much closer race. Then it features my favorite director, my favorite actor, which is Christian Bale, is my favorite actor. And you have just one of the greatest scores, one of my favorite scores, even though it's very simple, as probably my favorite movie performance in Heath Ledger's Joker, my favorite villain. It's just a movie. It's one of my favorite theater experiences of all time, especially since I convinced my mom that it was like this family-friendly movie like Batman and Robin, which I grew up on, even though it definitely wasn't. And then in terms of the people I'm going to tag, most of the YouTubers I watch and subscribe to focus primarily on specific genres, and the ones that don't have already been tagged by other people. And so I'm just going to see if they will do these videos and see their takes on other genres. And first up, the previous statement doesn't actually apply to, and that is Jared Talks Cinema. He basically puts out like 2 reviews each week. I don't always agree with him, but nonetheless, they're great reviews. He has great takes on movies, and he does it fairly efficiently. His reviews are much shorter than mine. And next up is someone that primarily just does comic book movies, but I know he's a big fan of Warrior and movies in general, and that is Rogers Reviews Comics. He also does comic book reviews, and so if that's a thing you're interested in, definitely check him out. He does amazing lists and recommendations for comic books. So definitely check him out. I would be curious to see what his thoughts are on these other genres. And then most of the YouTubers I actually watch and subscribe to are actually horror YouTubers. And so the next 3 on this list are primarily horror YouTubers. But I'm curious to see what their takes would be in other genres. And so I'm going to tag Royal Horror, who's someone that's always been a loyal subscriber, and he has some awesome takes in horror movies. He recently reviewed the entire Scream franchise. And next up is Count Kyle. He's fairly new. He's only got a couple videos out, and he's a horror-focused channel, but I'd love to see his thoughts on other genres as well. And then lastly, I'm just going to mention Mike Carpet's Movies. He recently reviewed every Friday the 13th movie, and he's ranked the movies. He's given his top 10 kills. He's ranked The Final Girls. And he does it in kind of a laid-back way that's just a lot of fun to watch. And he makes great videos out of it. So definitely check out his channel, and I would love to hear his thoughts on these other genres as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon, smash the subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well to stay up to date on my channel. And as always, I will return next time when I see you again.